just to get ready for the Great Reset. We've got to get these evil nuke plants out of there and get people to pay higher prices for their electricity. 40%. There will be riots in the streets of France. This is the kind of stuff that is coming our way, and you won't have anything to do with it, and they'll explain it away a million different ways. But the problem is being caused by the left and those who believe in Build Back Better. It's called The Great Reset. We've been talking about it for a long time. Tomorrow, my new book comes out on The Great Reset. This is a must-read for anybody that cares about freedom anywhere in the world. This is not an American-centric book. It is written for America, but this involves the entire free world. It's Justin Haskins co-authoring it with me, called The Great Reset, and Justin is with us now. Hi, Justin.
Good morning, Glenn.
I just saw this new Heartland poll from Rasmussen that is coming out next week. You sent it to me early. And I find some really disturbing things in there, specifically on the Great Reset. 44% of Americans don't have any idea what it is. And then it is almost a tie, if I'm not mistaken, on those for and against these policies. Is that right?
So the vast majority of people, that's true, did not know what it was. As of the people who did know what it was pretty close to a tie if you're looking at strongly favor versus somewhat favor and somewhat oppose and strongly oppose. You group those things together. It was pretty close to a tie, but somewhat opposed was over 50%. So most voters did say, if they knew what it was, that they did not support it. And strongly opposed was by far the plurality choice at 43%.
Correct.
So
Correct.
There were a lot of people who know what it is and hate it, but there's still a lot of people who have no clue what it is, and their world is changing around them, and they just don't know why.
And I would contend that some of those people that said, yeah, they know about it and they're for it, some are socialists, some have to be fascistic. But I'll bet you most people don't really even know. They've bought the hype that this is just a jobs program. This is, just for global warming. They haven't really looked into it. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And actually, there was one question in the poll that we asked that I think brought that out. We asked people what they thought the highest priority should be for businesses. So if they had to choose one highest priority for businesses, what should it be? And of the questions we asked, most of them were things that you would normally, if you were a conservative, especially associate with things businesses should be doing, like earning a profit, to benefit shareholders or owners, providing individual consumers with high-quality products and services at the lowest prices. That was the number one choice at 45%. But then we threw in trying to stop climate change as one option, and then using business resources to pursue social justice causes as another option. Now, those two are pretty much the stated purpose of ESG scores, which is a huge part of the Great Reset. And only 9% said trying to stop climate change, and 1% said using business resources to pursue social justice causes. So together, it's only 10% of voters. The vast majority of even Democrats did not make those selections. So when you ask people whether they support the Great Reset and they say yes, there were a bunch of people who said yes, but also said that they don't think that stopping climate change or having businesses fight for social justice causes was their highest priority. And that's really one of the main tenets of the Great Reset. So I don't think that people who support it even really fully understand what it is in the vast majority of cases.
Especially since it looks like 54% of the American people still believe in capitalism. 45%, this is in order, 45% providing individual customers with high-quality products and services at the lowest price. Then the next is providing goods, benefits, and pay to employees. So, that's probably pretty good. 14, earning a profit to benefit shareholders or owners, 14%. The last two, like you said, is only 10%. And those are the real goals of the Great Reset. I contend that earning a profit to benefit shareholders or owners, that's also part of the Great Reset. Would you not agree, or would you?
I think it absolutely is. I think the Great Reset is the biggest Ponzi scheme that's ever been hatched in the history of humanity. I think that there's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars flowing into people in Wall Street, investors and big banks and corporations and all these people. So I think there are a lot of people getting rich off of it. But I think when we ask voters this question, I don't think that they understand that. I think the vast majority of them are thinking, no, that's just part of capitalism. And there's certain people who would answer the question that way for that reason. But yes, is the Great Reset primarily about benefiting shareholders and owners of companies? In a way, you could absolutely make that argument.
Yeah, and I would say owners more than shareholders. I'd say owners more than shareholders, stakeholders as they call them. So let's go through some of this stuff. These poll numbers come out later this week and early next week, but I think it's worth going into here. We have an exclusive on these, so let's go into them. Let's start with COVID and the trust level on COVID and vaccinations. Where does that stand?
Right. So what we wanted to do is ask questions that would get at the heart of how authoritarian are people really when it comes to the unvaccinated. And so we asked voters, these are all likely voters, we asked them a series of questions about policy proposals, some of them we just made up, that get increasingly more authoritarian, to see how authoritarian people would be. And then we looked at party affiliation and things to see if there was a connection between party affiliation and authoritarianism. And what we found was that about half of Democrats, depends on the question, sometimes it's a little more than half, sometimes it's a little less, but about half of Democrats support some incredibly authoritarian policies. For example, we asked people if they would support a policy that would require that unvaccinated people live in designated areas or facilities, essentially camps. And about half of Democrats said yes. We asked if people should be required to wear trackable devices if they refuse to get vaccinated. About half of Democrats said yes to that as well. We asked if people should be fined or imprisoned for questioning the efficacy of the existing COVID vaccine. And about half of Democrats said that they should be fined or imprisoned for that. The only authoritarian question we asked that did not have about half of Democrats support it, or more than half, was a question we asked, if you refuse to get vaccinated, should you lose custody of your children? And only 28% of Democrats said yes to that. So I mean,
that is crazy.
It's totally crazy. And when we looked at the results, we compare those results to, say, Republicans or independents. Independents are a little bit more likely to go along with it, as you would probably expect.
But really not anywhere close. They're in the 20s.
Exactly right. The independents overwhelmingly rejected these policies, almost just as much as Republicans, depending on the question. So this is really only Democrats that support this. And then when you look at all the other crosstabs from the polling data, from all the other questions, the number one thing, one of the top two or three things, but the biggest thing that you could look at to say, what is the best predictor for determining how people are going to answer these authoritarian questions, was their support level for Joe Biden. If their support level for Joe Biden was very high, the highest level, then they were most likely to be authoritarian. If their support level was extremely low for Joe Biden, the biggest disapproval, then they were the least likely to be authoritarian. And so you can see this divide that exists in America is pretty overwhelming. And support for Joe Biden amongst independents was very low. So that actually kind of plays into all of this as well.
And where does Joe Biden stand with Donald Trump? I just saw a poll that shows Joe Biden is underwater in all but, I think, 3 states in the union, which is really bad, really bad.
Yeah. We asked questions about, we asked the question specifically about a head-to-head matchup between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the next presidential election, and 46% of likely voters chose Donald Trump compared to 40% for Joe Biden. And when you look at the breakdown by party affiliation, what you see is that support, the real reason for the difference is that support for Joe Biden amongst independents was only 29%. compared to Donald Trump was 45%. So if you're Donald Trump, that's an incredibly strong result to get from a poll that's looking at likely voters.
And women changed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Women were tied between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which when you look at exit polling from the last election, women pretty much very strongly rejected Donald Trump, according to the exit polling, in favor of Joe Biden. So that shows that there are a lot of independents. There are a lot of women. If I had to guess, I would say there are a lot of people in suburbs who are changing their minds now that they've seen a year of Joe Biden and the absolute catastrophe that it's been. And this really shouldn't be shocking. This is what we saw with the election results that happened earlier in Virginia. Virginia is a blue state. Virginia has been a blue state now for over a decade. And yet they overwhelmingly rejected an establishment Democrat, went with a Republican. And I think that shows when the election is about the issues. When people see the failure of the Biden administration, they're going to reject it, and they're going to go in the direction of Donald Trump.
One last thing on Virginia and Youngkin. He just put in as his Secretary of Education somebody who is deep into Common Core, CRT. The connections and the money is gigantic. I hope he doesn't turn out to be, a hidden leftist or a hidden liar when it comes to that. That was the most important thing, the schools with children. And he's just put in charge of all of the reforms, somebody who's believed in this stuff from the get-go. I hope the voice of Virginia and Virginians are heard by the governor. Well, sir, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It is Justin Haskins. He is the co-author of the book, The Great Reset, which comes out tomorrow. And you can find that at glensnewbook.com. For the first time, we are having problems keeping people selling fake copies of my book online. So we want to make sure that we are always on the links to make sure that you get the book that you want to buy. It's glensnewbook.com. glensnewbook.com. Order it right now.